Hello everyone and welcome to the course on simulating fluid flows using Python. I hope you all are staying safe and please keep doing so. Please keep exercising precautions because for now at least that's the only way to resist yourself against this coronavirus. A very warm welcome to everyone who have taken this course for the next month and special thanks to these guys who have also taken the advanced options to support this channel. In the last lecture, we had looked at the generalized finite volume formulation, and in the lecture today, I am going to talk about how you can write a generalized FVM code in Python. So we are going to transform that theoretical knowledge, those ideas, into a Python code. And specifically, I'll also talk about how we can compare or what would be the result if we use a Dirichlet boundary condition and if we try to convert that to a Neumann boundary conditions. So recall that in the last lecture, we had looked at the ideas as to how we can implement that. So today we are going to see what would be the result of that change and what would be the result of that implementation of the Neumann boundary condition. So this lecture would effectively finish off the topic of one-dimensional steady heat conduction. So please respond in the comments if you have any questions so far, because moving forward we would look at more advanced topics. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. Just to quickly recap the last lecture, we had transformed our governing equation into this red form, that is APTP equals to AETE plus AWTW. So this was our generalized finite volume discretization where these coefficients AP, AE and AW, these can be obtained using the material properties and the grid properties. So this equation holds true for every kind of boundary condition irrespective of what it is and also for all type of grids and materials. So we had looked at how to use this equation for the Dirichlet boundary condition, that is the fixed boundary conditions, and we had also looked at for the Neumann boundary conditions. So if we had an insulated end, we had looked at how would this equation modify itself at the boundary. So if we had the west boundary being the insulated boundary, we saw that the west boundary coefficient AW would be 0, whereas the other coefficients would remain as it is. So let me try to show you how we first implement the generalized FVM formulation in Python. So I'll sort of recall the previous code that we had written, that we had obtained by considering the simplified version, and then I'll introduce the generalized code with the Neumann boundary condition. So I'll try to tackle both the aspects together. In the code you would see the general implementation as well as the insulated boundary condition. So hopefully you would try to understand both the things together, and that would be my effort. So let's look into the Python code now. So this is the code that I had previously written for the simplified version of steady 1D heat conduction. So we had defined the number of grid points, the domain size, and we had defined a numerical error, and we also had our two different kind of temperature arrays. So we had T and Tnew. So here the Tnew was used to store the updated values, whereas the T variable, this was used to store the current iteration value. So we had written a while statement to begin with. We had said that while the numerical error is greater than epsilon, we would do a for loop based computations, and here the for loop index would be varying from 1 to n-1, and we had feed in this particular formula, that is Tnew is the half of Ti minus 1 and Ti plus 1. So our objective here is to not force this formula and try to use the generalized formulation. So let's see how we can do that. So the first bit of the code remains exactly the same, that we import the required modules, that is the NumPy and Matplotlib. Further down the line, we have the same ideas of the grid geometry, that is the number of points, the domain size. After that, I'm also defining the thermal conductivity and the cross-section area. So here I'm simply defining them as K and capital A, and you would see that, or you would have remembered that even though the numbers don't really matter, but you would need these numbers in order to calculate those coefficients. So that's the new thing that I've done here, just to define these numbers here. The part that I'm highlighting right now, that more or less remains as it is. There's no change because we don't have to. The while loop again starts by saying that while the numerical error is greater than epsilon. Now, in the case of insulated boundary, remember that it's a Newman boundary condition, so we have to do some special treatment, and therefore our for loop would begin with that point itself. So if previously our for loop was going from the first index, that is the point that is next to the boundary, but in this case we want to do some calculations for the point at the boundary, and therefore in this case, rather than writing for in range of I to n minus 1, I have to modify and change it to I being 0 to n minus 1, because I want to consider that 0th index. Remember, the first physical point has a Python index of 0. So once I do that, once I tell the Python to execute the I or to vary the I from 0 to n minus 1. So remember here n minus 1, that is not taken care of. So the last point that I would take, it would be n minus 2. So very small thing, but easy to skip by. So here I write that for I in this range, we define AE as KA by H. I have just added this np.float64 so that the computations would be carried out in a 64-bit floating point type number. And similarly, I define AW as the same, that is KA by H. And remember that if we have certain things on the boundary, in this case an insulated boundary, then what we have to do is we simply have to tell the code at that point the AW is 0. So in this case we had the insulated boundary, that is why AW is 0. If we had dt over dx as something else, this may not be true. So you have to do the calculation again and see what that AW would be. So in this case I have to tell my code that if I equals to 0, so this is the syntax of the if statement. So I'm telling the code if that I index, the index that is going on in the for loop, if that takes a value of 0, so the syntax is if I followed by double equals to. So I'm telling or rather asking the Python script to cross check if the I is 0. And again note here that I have this colon here because that takes care of the syntax. So I'm saying that if I equals to 0, just override the value of AW being 0. So previously AW could have calculated as KA by H for every I, but if the I is 0, override that as AW is 0. So for all other I, AW would still be KA by H except for the 0th index. So for the 0th index, AW would be 0, AE would be KA by H. And finally, for all the points, AP equals to AE plus AW. So remember that the indented area here. So within the if statement, we only have this line. So if had I done something like this, then this segment here, it would be considered within the if loop, but we don't want that. We want it outside the if statement. So please make sure that you indent things properly, because that is how the looping is done in Python. Unfortunately, you don't have a very clear-cut definition or indication of where that loop is ending. So outside that, I'm writing AP equals to AE plus AW. That is a result of FVM formulation. And finally, we write the new value of temperature at the ith index is AE, that is the east coefficient, multiplied by the temperature at the east grid point. So this would actually be Ti plus 1 and AW into TW minus 1. So divided by AP again. So I'm just writing AP TP equals to AE TE plus AW TW, and we can rearrange that to get TP. So I'm dividing it by AP. And finally, we can again calculate the numerical error. So this part is again the same, nothing new here. And this part over here, we are just changing the iteration number so that we can see how many iterations would it take for the code to converge. So I'll just quickly dock this again into the main Python interface so that you can see as to what exactly is happening. So let me run this script first. So, or rather, what I'll do is I'll run the Newman script first, and then we'll compare what the results were for the case of the Dirichlet boundary condition. So I've clicked on this execute button, and I'm letting the software run. So you can see that this red stop button here appears, telling me that the code is actually being run. So now I've gotten the solution for the temperature as a function of position for this case, and I'm not sure if it's very easy to see, but you can see these markers here which says that the temperature stays at 1 for the entire domain. So recall that previously we had obtained again a linear distribution, but that was changing from 0 to 1 because those were the boundary conditions, that on one of the boundaries the temperature was 0 and on the other boundary the temperature was 1. But as soon as you insulate this boundary condition, what that does is, because we still have the t equal to 1 boundary condition here, the insulated boundary condition physically says that heat wouldn't pass through here, so it has to come down over here. So both the ends, they have to be maintained at the same temperature in order to satisfy both the boundary conditions. So that's the physical implementation. And you can also cross-verify using very simple theoretical analysis, that if you integrate the equation twice and substitute that boundary condition, you would see that t equals to 1 would be the solution to this problem. So this kind of toy problem was to give you an idea of how you can use various kind of boundary conditions. So suppose if both of my ends were Dirichlet boundary conditions, then I wouldn't need to change the for loop index to start from 0. So I could have simply removed that for I being 0, and I could have started from the first index. But hopefully this would give you an idea of how you can do that as well, because a lot of times some sort of boundary flux, that is the boundary gradient, is specified, and in those conditions this kind of understanding of how to incorporate that becomes very necessary. So that would be all for the lecture today. In the next lecture, we would start the new topic, that is the two-dimensional heat conduction, or rather two-dimensional diffusion problems in general with source. So far we haven't considered the presence of a source or a sink term inside our domain, but it would be clear if what would be the implications of that when we would consider a two-dimensional scenario. So we are introducing two complexities now. So the first thing is, the domain would be two-dimensional, so we would have a rectangular or a square kind of system, and we would have a source term. So of course we would first start with a no source kind of scenario, but we would also see how the presence of a source term might create a difference to that. So hopefully in the next maybe couple of lectures, we would focus our attention absolutely towards the two-dimensional diffusion problems, and this would also introduce introduce the diffusion problems even in higher dimensions, because now you would be able to generalize that. So we would see the governing equation, the APTP equation, how that would change if we increase the dimensions and if we increase the source term. So this is how I want to build up the finite volume formulation gradually. So until the next lecture, which would be uploaded probably again in a couple of days, please stay safe and take care. I would see you in the next one.